To move forward from the last video on balancing the kick, snare and sub, it's now time to start slowly bringing in the layers of sound that work their way upwards from the bass to the top end. So the next step for me is going to be bringing up the square bass. Just going to reach for a chorus. What this can do is it'll add movement to the sound. It also kind of smooths out the frequencies that are in there as well. And finally, it also gives a sense of stereo width. So in general, it's quite good for fattening up sounds. So I'm first going to play with the modulation until it's moving the sound a bit, but without kind of changing its pitch too much. Okay, that sounds good. And then basically just set the dry wet until the balance seems about right. And at this stage, I'm going to create the first of my return effects, and this one's going to be a small or a box room reverb. And all this will do is basically just add a very slight sense of room to any sound that I send to it. So I'm just going to send the square bass to it first, and then I'll tune the reverb to that sound as a starting point. So just take any cuts off because I want it to be a full range reverb, set it to highest quality, have a slightly long decay time just so I can hear it clearly, and then tune the size, use diffuse just to thicken it up a bit, and then pull back the decay time. Okay, now just rebalance the amount go into the reverb from the square bass. So the next sound I'll bring in is the watery bass, which I'm thinking is going to be more of a layer behind the other sounds. So just pull that down. And while I remember, just to put some EQ work on the square bass and the watery sound as well. It's the usual bracketing. It doesn't need to have much bottom end to it. Just find out whereabouts I want to go. Bracket the top as well. And find the mid-range area that makes it boxy or pokey and pull that back. About there, sounds good. Just pull that back. The good thing about doing this mid-range type of scooping is you also can afford to turn up the sound a little bit higher in the mix without it trying to fight the other sounds. So just look at the watery bass, just take out the bottom end. I've already got an EQ, let's use that one. Okay, same again, find that pokey area that brings it too far forward. And pull that back. And just going to pay my attention to another layer that happens on the last section, which is the slowly creeping sound. It's already quite filtered, so the bracketing, apart from the bottom end, is not going to do much. But I do still want to find where it sticks too far out into the mix and pull that back so it sits behind the other sounds. And again, I can afford to bring that up a little bit. So that's it for the bass section now. Next I'll work on the lead line and bring that up. It's obviously quite a big sound, so this might need a little bit of work to slot into the mix. Try a bit of chorus just to help it sit back a little bit without it sounding like it's been EQ'd to go back. Also gives a bit of movement to the sound too. It's quite gritty sound in the lead, so it'll smooth that out a little bit. And I can hear that the organ hasn't actually got the same attack stage, that high-pitched part. So let me just have a look at that, because that was a preset I loaded. So what I'll need to do is just manually go in find the attack stage for each amp envelope and assign that to a macro. And then I'll copy the automation that was used for the other channels to that as well. Okay, that's done. Just add a bit of chorus to the organ, smooth it out a little bit, rebalance it. Okay, that's sounding better. So I'm just going to try and pull this into the mix a little bit and pull in any frequencies that might be competing with other sounds, like the drums and the bass sounds. Just pull the tops down a little bit because it's a bit fizzy. Pull the lower mids. Quite in the pocket, so I'm just going to find a grainy area, just pull that back. You notice how it's a bit more of a wall of sound now without being too abrasive. Just give a tiny bit of boost to the top end that's not in the fizzy area, it's a little bit below it. Re-pull in the high cut. This is a real balancing game. So you got to, I'll be tweaking this until I finish the mix, just to get it to fit in or fit around the other sounds. Just going to try a saturator on there. It's already quite dense in terms of frequencies, so I'm going to try this in parallel, put the dry down, figure out how much drive I need to just trying to create a bit of solidity to this. So the saturation is distorting the signal a lot and making it sound flat and fizzy, and my dry wet is letting me choose how much of that comes through alongside the original. Okay, cool. And just have a look at the sub minus drum group that we've got for everything but the drums and the sub. And what I've done here is I've EQ'd out the fundamental frequencies of the kick and the snare that we covered way back when we were designing our drums. So around the 100, 200 hertz area. Just pulling the top end a little bit for all melodic sounds, and that will let us have the cymbals clearly come through from the drum kit. Because of the density of the lead line, I'm going to try and group the kick and the snare and then change the sub, minus sub and drums group to be triggered from the kick and the snare rather than just the kick. And that'll give you that overloaded mixing type sound. So now that that's grouped, just set the gate that's stuck in the group to those sounds, and now you'll see it's pumping to both sounds. I want it so it's a little bit noticeable but not too much. I'm not going for that super hyped ducking effect. Just enough to keep things clear and let the kick and snare have a chance to get through this very busy sounding mix. So now that's sounding quite solid. We've got the lead section sorted, the drums sorted, and the bass parts. The only other main section I need to be looking at is the rave section, so we'll look at that next.